So you've been in your attic and noticed damaged plywood caused by a roof leak and are looking for guidance on how to fix it yourself? Then look no further because you've made it to the perfect channel. In this video, we are going to show you step by step how to repair your own roof. We'll be showing you how to replace and install the damaged plywood decking, the asphalt shingles, and the leaking attic vent. Every step is timestamped in the description below for your viewing convenience, along with the material and tool list needed for this project, along with what you can expect to pay a roofing company for this type of roof repair. So brace yourself because this is a jam-packed video full of valuable information guaranteed to help make this project easy and very simple for you. Let's go ahead and get started. Step number 1, always start 3 rows above your desired area. Here, I'm going to save row number 3, but I'm removing row 2 and row 1 and all the others below, meaning I have to start by removing the nails from row number 3. Although I'm saving the row, I still have to carefully remove these nails from row number 3 because those same nails are holding the rows below it. Make sure you remember this because it will help make this repair a lot easier. Use your flat bar to pull out as many roofing nails as possible from your work area. Work area sizes may vary depending on the amount of roof damage your leak may have caused. It's important you always go into your attic and predetermine the size of your work area. In this project, my work area will be about a 5 by 5 foot area, meaning I am going to work 2.5 feet per side around this vent. That is the amount of nails that I'm going to pull, a 5 by 5 foot square. One thing that I want you to remember and I want to point out is that you can never pull out too many nails from your work area. The more nails that you pull out from your work area, the easier this project will be. Don't worry about pulling out too many nails. The more, the better. I promise you that before this video ends, I will show you how to reinstall every single nail that you pulled. Step number 2. Now that you've pulled all the needed nails from your work area, begin removing the needed shingles. This step should be very easy for you since you've already pulled out all the needed nails in step 1. That's why it's very important that you take your time in step 1. If you feel that the shingles are not coming out easily, then more than likely you have a few more nails to pull. Notice the vertical sides. I am cutting the tab straight down the tab line. This is going to be my vertical stopping point. Again, if there are any nails on those sides, go ahead and pull them out too. As long as you cut straight down the tab line, like what you see me doing, you don't have to worry about losing the shingle pattern. This will come in handy in later steps. Before we move on to step number 3, I want to point out the weather. Give yourself a full day of sunshine. Maybe 2, 3 would be best. Not saying that it's going to take you 3 days. This project should maybe take you like 2 to 3 hours to complete. Always give yourself time to work in peace. The worst thing is to be rushed because here comes a storm and you're worried that the rain is gonna now pour into your house. You don't want that stress on your mind. Keep the weather in mind always. Hey guys, while you watch me make the rest of my vertical cuts and I have a few seconds before our next step, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our channel. Our channel is strictly roofing. We show you how to do everything roofing yourself. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button to keep you updated with our latest roofing how-to videos. We have videos on how to install sun tunnels, skylights, ridge vent, solar attic machines, you name it, we got it. Step number 3 is very easy and pretty self-explanatory, which is why we are not going to spend a lot of time on this step. But I want you to use your hammer and I want you to pull every single remaining roofing nail out of your work area, including plastic caps and metal caps. Anything that is holding down the felt. We need to remove everything from the work area. Step number 4, this is a very common rookie mistake that you will not make because you have a professional here to guide you. Here, you should pause this video and feel free to take a screenshot. This is something very important you must know. Plywood cuts, no matter the size, whether it's a 2 foot, a 4 foot, a 6 foot, 8 foot, you always cut the 8 foot long side of the sheet perpendicular to the studs like the green plywood is with the check mark. It's very common to think that this doesn't matter, but it really does. If you want to get the full advantage of the strength in the plywood, make your cut with the 8 foot side perpendicular to the studs. The way that I located my studs was, do you notice how I simply just used my hand and felt for the studs? Then once I had an idea where my studs were, I cut the felt over the stud line on both sides. Again, I went into the attic from the very beginning, so I already had an idea of where my studs were. That's why it's very important that you predetermine the work area to be, like I mentioned in the video, my work area is a 5 by 5 foot area, but I already had an idea because I went into the attic and found my studs. So knowing the stud location before making any plywood cuts is very important. What I'm doing here is that I noticed that the plywood was still a little soft, so I decided to go down one more row. Feel free to do that too, because now that you have this entire area open, you want to make sure that you replace all the needed plywood decking. Step number 5. Now that you have your plywood exposed, it should be very easy for you to spot the framing nails that are holding the plywood in place. Use your claw bar to pull every framing nail from your work area. The reason why I want you to pull every framing nail from the plywood studs is because in the next step, we are going to be cutting the plywood, and I want to make sure that we are only cutting wood. We don't want any sparks flying around because our saw is cutting through framing nails, or our saw getting stuck in those nails, or any of that. We don't want none of that. We want to cut straight through bare wood. What you see me doing on this pro tip is that because I pulled the framing nails and have an idea of where my studs are, I'm cutting a small 2 to 3 inch cut through the plywood over my stud area to see the exact center of the stud from above the roof. Repeat this step for both vertical sides. Step number 6. Now that you know where the exact center of your vertical studs are at, use your chalk line to mark your vertical cut lines. For the horizontal marks, find a straight edge, either the nearest plywood joint, like what I'm doing, or use the nearest straight edge or at the top or the bottom side of your roof's edge. Then mark the exact measurement for both left and right horizontal sides, top and bottom. For example, if it's 20 inches, then the other side should be also an exact 20 inches. You want to make sure that you're cutting as close to a perfect plywood square as possible. You don't want to cut out a triangular shaped square. If you do this correctly, the next step will be easy for you. Step number 7. Now that you have your plywood marked on all 4 sides, go ahead and begin to cut your plywood with your skill saw. Make sure that you calibrate the saw's depth to the thickness of your plywood. That way you don't cut any studs or anything else that isn't supposed to be cut. Because trust me, I've seen water lines, electric lines, AC freon lines attached to the underside of the plywood. That's why the depth calibration of your saw is very important, along with going inside your attic and checking for those things too. If you so happen to come across the metal clips like I did there, go ahead and reuse them. There's nothing wrong with that. For whatever reason, if you don't have any clips, don't worry too much about that. They don't sell 1 or 2 because for a project like this, you really just need like 2 of them. So unless you want to have a big bag of clips laying around that you might not ever use again, then don't worry too much about buying these clips. I'm only reusing them because they are right there on site and it's a small patch. So it's completely up to you. After you've made sure that you checked for any leftover framing nails or wood chips that may be in the way, go ahead and grab both your vertical measurements and both your horizontal measurements. Those two measurements you will need. Write them down on a piece of paper or take a picture of them with your phone and take them downstairs to prepare for your plywood cut. Step number 8, install your plywood. Again, if you have the clips on hand, go ahead and use them. Also, notice how I had my plywood cut and made to fit. It's because I took my measurements downstairs and cut the plywood on the floor. A very common rookie mistake that people make is that they think they are stronger than gravity, so they bring the plywood on the roof and then notice it's very difficult. Sometimes they slip, sometimes they fall, sometimes plywood falls. It's just best to make the cut downstairs in the comfort of the ground. I've seen plenty of accidents because of this mistake. So believe me, it's easier to cut on a flat floor than on a sloped roof. Once your plywood is in place and you're comfortable with it, go ahead and mark the center of your stud lines using your chalk line. This way your framing nails don't miss the studs. I recommend you install at least one framing nail per every 6 to 8 inches. And also, remember to install framing nails where the old plywood meets the new plywood, because remember, when you pulled the framing nails, you loosened the plywoods next to the new plywood. So don't forget to re-nail those plywoods too. The type of nail that I'm using in my framing gun, it's a 2.5-inch ring shanked framing nail. I recommend you stick something similar close to that size. Don't go too much bigger or too much smaller. If you have the option of buying ring shank nails, buy those because those are actually better than any other nail you could find. Step number 9, mark your 14-inch circular cutout. You're more than welcome to pause this video here and also take a screenshot of this image. But what I'm doing is I am marking the center of my circle with a roofing nail. Then with my tape, I am marking 7 inches away from the center and marking that point. Once I get both marks, I use my chalk line as my string and tie my pencil to the end of the string and go around to make the full circle. This way I have a perfect 14-inch circle. The cutout size may be different for you depending on the size of vent that you use, but this strategy can still work for you just as long as you adjust your measurement. I'm sorry that you can't see my mark. I should have used a dark marker instead of a pencil. When making your circular cutout, I use my skill saw just to give myself an opening to let my sawzall get in the plywood to make my circular cut. When using a sawzall, it's very important that you don't go saw crazy and forget about your studs, then accidentally cut through your studs. These sawzalls can easily cut through studs with no problem, and trust me, that's a problem that you don't want to have. If you don't have a sawzall, you can still use your skill saw and cut out an octagon shape. Step number 10, prepare your work area by installing your felt underlayment. Felt underlayment has to be installed underneath your existing felt on the top horizontal side, but past your existing felt a minimum of 6 inches on all other 3 sides. For the bottom horizontal side, as long as you're over the existing felt, over the existing shingles, you should be fine. Your felt has to be fastened down using either plastic caps, metal caps, or the same roofing nails that you pulled out in step number 1. If you think that you are not going to be able to install the shingles on that same day, then don't use nails, use plastic or metal caps. Installing felt is pretty simple. Just remember to tuck it under the top felt and over on all other 3 sides. If you're wondering which side to place that vent on, if it doesn't come with an arrow that tells you up or down, look for that metal joint connection. That is the side that you want to install on the bottom side. You never want to install that joint with it facing the top side because water can get in through that joint. As long as it's pointing down, you should be fine and don't have to worry about water coming in through that vent. Place your vent centered over your cutout hole, then install 2 1.25 inch roofing nails on the top side of the flashing. Step number 11. Using your 1.25 inch roofing nails, begin installing your shingles. In this step, I will be teaching you a ton of pro tips. Also, please comment below if you enjoyed this video or if I could have done anything else different to make this video easier for you. Here, I want you to use the existing shingle pattern and line up your new shingles to its bottom corners. For the far right side bottom corner of the shingle, line that corner up to the end of the bottom shingles tab line. Then work your way up. Pro tip. I recommend you install every shingle per row, meaning moving from left to right. Doing this will help you keep a straight shingle line. When you go straight up per vertical side, you risk losing your shingle line. Once your shingles reach the vent, don't stop installing the shingles under the vent until you have at least 1 full nail line underneath the flashing, just like what I'm doing. What you see me doing here is I'm using a shingle as my starter shingle and installing that shingle vertically. I am sandwiching this shingle between the felt and the vent, but over my last shingle's nail line. Doing this serves as a second water barrier protection. Not only are we going to depend on our seal, we are also going to have a starter shingle as protection. It's going to make more sense in a bit. Make sure you remember to repeat the same steps for both sides of the vent. The last shingle that was tucked underneath the vent may be covering part of your circular cutout. Make sure you lift the vent and cut off the access shingle. This way you don't block any airflow. To keep a clean work area, always pre-cut the shingles and make sure they will fit before installing the seal. I prefer to install seal as I need it, 1 shingle at a time. This way I keep a clean work area. Your seal should be placed on the far outside edge of the vents flashing. You always want to make sure you apply seal over your nails that were used to hold the vent down. 2 to 3 nails per side should be enough. What I am pointing out here is a very important pro tip that you will get nowhere else but only on this channel. Most roof leaks leak around vents because their tab seams are installed sometimes too close to the edge of the vents flashing, like what you see here. When you do this, you are solely depending on the exposed seal to work. But once the seal wears off, water can freely come in. What I recommend you do here is do what I did and install a second starter shingle to protect your seal. This small piece of shingle should be sandwiched between the seal and the top shingle. This way you don't have exposed seal. And notice my tab line here is too close again, so I'm installing that second starter shingle, protecting my seal. When you make your cuts around the vent, make sure that you leave about a 1-inch gap between the shingles and the vent. The water that you get in there, you want to make sure it flows down freely. You don't want anything stopping it. That's why it's important to leave that small gap between the shingles and the vent. When I was cutting my plywood, I accidentally cut that shingle tab. Since I'm there, I am replacing it. If you are still here watching the video, I would like to thank you so much for sticking around. Always know that if there are any questions that you have on any roof repair, feel free to comment below or give us a call for our professional guidance. If there is a how-to video that you would like me to make, also comment below, let me know, and I will make that happen for you. Thank you very much for your support. I really appreciate you. Always remember to re-nail every angle that you pulled every nail from, including the sides left and right, and the top side where the new and the old shingles connect. Step number 12. Install 2.5 inch or 1.25 inch rubber metal gasket screws at the bottom side of the vents flashing, preferably 3 inches away from the vertical bottom edge. Step number 13 and final. Apply a roof seal on all areas where the old and the new shingles meet. Make sure to apply seal on all the old and nail holes to cover any potential water entries. This seal is not only going to cover the old nail holes, but it's also going to connect the new shingles to the old shingles, because remember in step 1, we broke the seal to pull off the nails. So make sure that you get the top, the left, the right, and the bottom sides. This seal is very important because what it's going to do, it's going to stop the shingles from blowing off in the next windstorm. So remember to always apply where the new and the old shingles connect and over the existing nail holes. Alright guys, well thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you got something out of this video and it helped you. We showed you guys how to install plywood, vents, shingles, everything as promised. So please remember to hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you guys on our next roofing how-to video. Thank you.